Hi. Hi, everybody, and especially Camdyn. Camdyn is doing a book report on, I think it's my books. I'm not sure if there's a particular one, but it's something in the Legend of Rhyme series. And I've known Camdyn's mom, Melanie, for quite a few years. And Melanie asked if I would answer some questions for Camdyn, and I said sure, and that I would answer them in a video so that he could share that with his class. So I suppose that's what's happening right now. So hi, Camdyn's class. It's a pleasure to be here. So there's a few questions I haven't really prepared ahead of time because I kind of like to kind of do things a bit on the fly. So first question is, how did you come up with the setting of your story? My story is set on an island. I grew up on an island. I still live on Prince Edward Island. And so the setting of where things happen in rhyme are based on sort of my childhood playland, my childhood playground, which was the beach surrounding my parents' home. I grew up in a house on the cliff, basically. It wasn't teetering there or anything, but it was surrounded by the beach, a rocky beach. And there was a sandy section of the beach, and so the ocean scenes that happen in Legend of Rhyme stories are kind of taken from my imagination from there where I grew up. I kind of imagine if my home was in Iceland, because there were volcanoes and kind of mountainous shores on the island of Rhyme too. So that's kind of where that comes from. And the next question, how did you come up with the name Rhyme? I get all these questions about how I came up with names, and I wish that there was a better answer other than I just wrote a bunch of words on a piece of paper to see what sounded good. I remember jotting down the thoughts and my ideas for a Lord of Stone, and I needed the place was as much a character as the actual characters in the stories, and it needed to have a strong, special name. And I don't know what, something whispered Rhyme into my ear, I guess, and I loved the way it sounded, and the Legend of Rhyme, it just kind of sounded awesome, I thought so. So that's what I went with. I've learned to listen to my gut when it comes to names. What was your favorite story told by your dad when you were a kid? So Camdyn's done his homework, and he knows that I was inspired by my dad's stories that he would make up for us whenever we were kids. There's one, I don't know if I'd say it's my favorite, but my most memorable, that dad, he probably still tells them to my kids. There was a white horse, and the poor farmer who had this white horse was always trying to get him to this horse show. And no matter what, the white horse would always end up dirty. So he would be on the way to the show, and then they'd be trotting along, and then the white horse would fall into a mud puddle, and then they'd have to go back and clean him off. Or he would find something, he would go chasing after a pig, and he would fall in the manure pile. Or he would be finally all cleaned off, and they would go back to the show, and then a flock of birds would fly overhead, and they'd poop on the white horse, and the white horse would have to go back. So that was how that went. And sorry for if you can hear that text message. So yeah, that's the most memorable story. And there was another that my dad always would tell me, and that was stories of the Sandman. And I really liked his stories about the Sandman. And I am going to be bringing that into my 6th book. Your mom might remember my dad too. I think he picked on Melanie. Well, he didn't pick on her. He teased all of our friends. So he teased all my friends, and he probably teased all my sister's friends too, like in a funny way. I think they liked it. They had no choice because that's my dad. Question number 3. Do your children have a favorite story or adventure you've told them? Interesting question. Perhaps I should have read these before so that I could have asked them. They're not here right now. I think that my kids are just so used to me making up stories. I don't think that they would remember many besides the ones that I've actually published. Pretty much every time I make up every time I read them or tell them a story is something that just comes like bloop, it just comes out. So they it's a common thing where they'll say, "Mom, can you make up a story tonight?" And I'll sit down on their bed and I'll just start making up things. So I don't know if they would have a favorite, but that's something that I do is I just make stories up on the fly. So they probably don't have one. I'll have to ask them. I'll ask them and I'll get back to you. And number 4, are there any characters in the book that are based on real people in your life? I wouldn't say directly. There is a Nova, and your mom probably told you that's my mom's name. She's not based on, well, she's sort of based on her because she's very kind, but and she bakes a good pie. My mom makes a mean blueberry pie. So I borrow names. I borrowed my mom's name and bits of things from my mom, and I borrowed my sister's name, Crystal, and you'll meet her. In the 5th book, and the character Crystal is not really anything like my sister Crystal, except she kind of looks like her. That's all we'll say about that. There's a Starla. I have a friend named Starla, and I borrowed her name. And yeah, so I borrow names a lot. But the characters, my husband's name, there's a Jason in book 5 as well. But again, he's not really based on him. So I guess no, but I do borrow names and qualities of people. My daughter was born with a white streak of hair on her head as a bit of a birthmark, and so that's where the whole white streak on Ariana's hair came from. So that's all the questions that Camdyn had. Nothing too serious in there. I hope that I answered them well enough for you. And yeah, thank you so much for reading my books. It's a pretty cool thing whenever I heard that you were doing your book report on these. So thank you very much, Camdyn, and good luck. Bye-bye.